The town of Hollow Creek, Pennsylvania, looked ordinary from the outside. Rows of weathered houses leaned against each other on Main Street. The American flag fluttered outside the post office, and every fall the maple trees painted the sidewalks in blood-red leaves. But ask anyone who grew up there, and they'd lower their voice before telling you about the school. Hollow Creek High wasn't just old, it was haunted. The school building sat on the edge of town like a sentinel, 3 stories of crumbling brick and faded white columns. Its Gothic clock tower had stopped ticking decades ago, frozen forever at 3:07 a.m., the exact time, locals whispered, when the first tragedy struck. They said a girl named Mary Whitlock hanged herself in the girls' bathroom after a cruel prank. Some swore you could still hear the rope creaking if you stayed after dark. Others claimed they'd seen her ghost eyes sunken, lips purple, a rope burn etched around her pale throat. By the time Ethan Walker heard these stories, they'd already become folklore. But that didn't make them any less terrifying. The 4 friends. It was late October, a week before Halloween, when Ethan and his friends gathered in the Hollow Creek High Library after hours. The wind rattled against the tall windows, and the fluorescent lights buzzed with a dying hum. There were 4 of them. Ethan Walker, tall, quiet, the kind of boy who always looked like he was listening, even when he wasn single quotes. Jake Turner, loud, sarcastic, constantly joking to hide how easily he scared. Melissa Grant, sharp-eyed, brave, the one who loved ghost stories a little too much. Tyler Brooks, the skeptic, science nerd, always with an explanation for everything. They had snuck in after practice, sitting cross-legged in the back corner, away from the librarian's desk. Melissa had brought a flashlight. Its beam cut across the dusty shelves, illuminating ancient yearbooks and forgotten textbooks. "Okay," Melissa said, her voice hushed but excited. "Who's ready for something real?" Jake rolled his eyes. "If you're gonna tell me another story about Bloody Mary, I'm out. My little sister tries that in the mirror every week." "This isn't Bloody Mary," Melissa replied. "This is worse. Way worse." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. He already knew what she was about to say. "Charlie, Charlie," she whispered. The Game-a-thon had heard about it, in passing, an internet thing. Some dumb fad where kids balanced pencils on a piece of paper and pretended to summon a spirit. But the way Melissa said it, it didn't sound like a joke. "What's Charlie, Charlie?" Tyler asked, though his tone was more annoyed than curious. Melissa leaned closer, her flashlight casting eerie shadows across her face. "It's a ritual. You draw a cross on paper, write yes and no in the quadrants, and balance 2 pencils on top of each other. Then you ask, 'Charlie, Charlie, are you there?' And if the pencil moves, it means you're pushing it." Tyler interrupted. Melissa glared. "It means Charlie has answered." Jake snorted. "Yeah, sure. And then what? He Venmos you a ghost dollar?" But Ethan didn't laugh. Something about the silence that followed made his skin crawl. The school was too quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed against your ears. Melissa smirked, sensing his unease. "You guys scared already?" "No," Ethan lied. "The dare, let's play it," Melissa said simply. Tyler shook his head. "Absolutely not. It's fake, but it's also stupid. You're basically daring yourself to freak out." "That's the point," she shot back. Jake grinned. "I'm in. If Tyler's too chicken, he can just watch." Tyler opened his mouth to argue, but Ethan cut in. "We don't even have the stuff." "I do," Melissa said. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded sheet of notebook, paper and 2 sharpened pencils. Ethan's throat went dry. She'd planned this. The 4 of them sat in a circle on the library floor. Melissa flattened the paper, drew a cross with careful strokes, and labeled each section. Yes, no. She placed 1 pencil. Yes, no. She placed 1 pencil across the lines, then balanced the other one on top. It wobbled slightly, then steadied. The air felt heavier, suddenly. Ethan pulled his hoodie tighter around himself. though the room wasn't cold. Melissa whispered, "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" The pencil didn't move. Jake snickered. Guess he's busy haunting somewhere else. But then, softly, a tap echoed in the silence. They all froze. Another tap-tap like footsteps, but far away. Melissa's eyes gleamed. "Did you hear that?" Tyler shook his head furiously. "It's the building. Old pipes. This place makes noises all the time." But Ethan wasn't convinced. The taps had rhythm, like someone walking closer. Melissa tried again. "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the top pencil twitched. Just slightly, but enough for Ethan to see. Jake's laughter died in his throat. The pencil rolled, slow at first, then deliberate, pointing directly to Yes. The whisper, "Holy shit." Jake breathed. "It's gravity," Tyler insisted, but his voice cracked. The pencil was unbalanced, that's all. Melissa ignored them. Her voice was trembling now, but she asked anyway. "Charlie, Charlie, what do you want?" The pencil quivered. Ethan held his breath. Slowly, it spun to no what, Jake whispered, and then Ethan heard it. A whisper, soft, faint, right behind him. He spun around, but no one was there. Just endless shelves, rows of dusty books, the flashlight beam cutting into the darkness. Melissa's lips parted. "Did you guys?" But before she could finish, the overhead lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. The four of them sat frozen, no one daring to move. Then, with a sudden crash, a heavy book fell from the highest shelf and slammed onto the floor beside them. Dust exploded into the air. Jake yelped and scrambled back. Tyler muttered, "Nope, nope, nope," and shoved his bag over his shoulder. "Guys," Ethan said quietly, but his voice shook. "I think we should stop." Melissa's hand hovered over the paper. "One last question, Melissa," Ethan warned. She ignored him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Charlie, Charlie, will we regret this?" The pencil spun so fast it clattered off the paper and rolled into the shadows. When Ethan turned to follow it with his eyes, he swore just for a second he saw a pale hand vanish behind the shelves. The library air still felt heavy, even after the pencil clattered into the shadows. Ethan didn't remember packing his bag, or standing up, or even how they got outside. All he remembered was the sound and icy whisper curling around his ear, and the pale hand that vanished between the shelves. Now, the four of them stood in the deserted school parking lot, the October wind biting against their skin. The building loomed behind them, its windows dark, its brick walls stained with decades of rain. Nobody spoke at first. It was Jake, of course, who finally broke the silence. "Okay," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded too loud, too sharp. "That was fun. Totally freaked me out for a second. But yeah, good job, Melissa. You almost had me." Melissa frowned. "Almost." Jake smirked, but his hands were trembling. The pencil was just gravity, and the lights. Old wiring. That book. Coincidence. There's no Charlie. But Ethan saw the way Jake's eyes kept darting back at the school, as if expecting something or someone to follow. Tyler tugged his backpack strap tighter. "I told you guys. Dumb game. Now can we please never do that again?" "Fine," Melissa muttered, though Ethan could tell she wasn't finished. Not even close. The nightmares that night. Ethan dreamed of the library. He was sitting in the circle again, staring at the paper with its scrawled yes and no. The pencils lay perfectly still. The silence was crushing. Then a whisper, soft and raspy, coiled around him. "Ethan." He turned, but the shelves stretched endlessly, fading into black. The whisper came again, closer now. "Ethan, play again." Something shifted in the darkness. A shape tall, thin, with arms too long, joints bending the wrong way. Its face was hidden, but two empty sockets burned with red light. It stepped closer. The smell of rot filled the air. "Ethan, tried to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The shadow leaned over him, its breath cold against his cheek. "Say my name." Ethan jolted awake, heart pounding, his sheets damp with sweat. For a moment, he thought he still heard the whisper, but it was just the rustle of tree branches outside his window. Across town, Melissa tossed and turned in her bed, mumbling in her sleep. Tyler dreamed of drowning in an endless hallway of water, and Jake. Jake woke up screaming. To mark the next morning, Ethan found Jake slumped at their cafeteria table, dark circles under his eyes. "Rough night?" Ethan asked carefully. Jake rubbed his face. His hand shook. "Couldn't sleep. Kept hearing shit in my room. Scratches, whispers." Melissa leaned in. "What kind of whispers?" Jake hesitated, then shrugged it off. "Nothing, just my imagination." He pulled his hoodie sleeve down, but not before Ethan saw it. Red scratches, trailing across his wrist like claw marks. "Jake," Ethan said slowly, "what happened to your arm?" Jake yanked the sleeve back down. "Nothing. Probably my cat." "You don't have a cat," Melissa whispered. Jake's jaw tightened. "Then I scratched myself in my sleep, okay? Drop it." But Ethan couldn't drop it, because the scratches hadn't looked random. They looked like letters, like someone had tried to carve a word into his skin. The legend deepens at lunch. Melissa slid into the seat beside Ethan with an armful of books. Dust puffed off them as she dropped them onto the table. "School archives," she said. "If Charlie is real, maybe there's something in here about it." Tyler groaned. "Oh my God, you're still on this?" Melissa ignored him, flipping through a yearbook from 1974. Hollow Creek's been around forever. If people really summoned something here, there has to be a record. Ethan leaned over, scanning the yellowed pages. Old black and white photos of students stared back at him, their smiles stiff and unnatural. Then Melissa froze. "Here." She turned the book around. Ethan's stomach dropped. It was a grainy newspaper clipping taped inside the yearbook. The headline read, "Local boy found dead in school after seance game goes WRO." The article was brief. Charles Mathers, 15, was discovered in Hollow Creek. High in 1974. Students reported he had been playing a game to summon spirits before his death. Teachers dismissed it as a tragic accident. "Charles," Melissa whispered. "Charlie." Tyler rolled his eyes, but his face had gone pale. "You're saying some random kid died 50 years ago, and now his ghost wants to chat with you through pencils?" "Not just died," Ethan said quietly. "Summoned, like we did." The group fell silent. The cafeteria noise around them faded, replaced by the pounding of Ethan's heart. The second whisper that evening. As Ethan walked home through the empty streets, the sky bruised with purple twilight. He felt it again. The weight, the cold. He glanced over his shoulder. No one was there. But when he passed under a flickering streetlight, a shadow moved across the pavement, a shadow that wasn't his. Ethan stopped, his breath catching. The shadow was tall, stretched unnaturally long, with spindly arms dragging along the asphalt. It raised its head slowly. The sockets glowed red. Ethan stumbled back, heart hammering. When he blinked, the shadow was gone, but the whisper lingered. "Say my name." Jake didn't come to school the next morning. When Ethan asked around, all he got were shrugs. By lunch, Melissa slid onto the bench beside him, her brow furrowed. "He's not answering my texts," she said. "Maybe he's sick," Ethan offered, though his stomach nodded. Jake wasn't the type to go radio silent. Even when he was grounded, he'd find a way to send a meme or a stupid voice message. Melissa leaned closer, lowering her voice. "What if it's him?" Ethan didn't need her to clarify who him was. Across the table, Tyler snorted. "Oh my God, don't start." He probably stayed up too late, playing Xbox. "You two are acting like some ghost murdered him in his sleep." But even as he said it, Tyler's eyes flicked toward the dark corners of the cafeteria. Jake's room that evening. Ethan and Melissa walked the cracked sidewalk toward Jake's house. The neighborhood was quiet, leaves crunching beneath their sneakers, porch lights flickering on one by one. Jake's house was small, 2 stories with peeling white paint. His bedroom window was dark. Melissa knocked. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Finally, the door creaked open. Jake's mom stood there, pale and tired, her bathrobe pulled tight. "Oh, hi," she said weakly. "Jake's upstairs." Her eyes darted away, as if she didn't want to say more. Melissa glanced at Ethan nervously, but they followed her inside. The house smelled faintly of antiseptic. When they reached Jake's room, Melissa pushed the door open slowly. Jake sat on his bed, hunched over, hoodie pulled low. His laptop glowed faintly. A video game paused on the screen. "Jake," Ethan said. No response. Melissa stepped closer. "Jake, are you okay?" Jake lifted his head. Ethan's breath caught. Dark bruises circled Jake's eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. His skin was pale, clammy, and across his forearm fresh scratches, deeper this time. They spelled a word. "Yes." Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." Jake's lips twitched into a humorless smile. "Guess Charlie likes me." The lockdown by the next week, the group had fractured. Tyler wanted nothing more to do with Melissa's obsession, and Jake barely came to school at all. But Melissa kept digging. Every night she scoured the archives. Every afternoon she cornered Ethan with her findings. "There were more deaths," she said one day, shoving another article toward him, all connected to Charlie. Students whispering about a boy who would answer if you called him. And every time someone ended up dead, Ethan scanned the clipping. The face of another teenager stared back at him, eyes empty and grainy black and white. "Melissa," he said quietly, "maybe we should just stop." Her eyes flashed. "It's too late to stop. We already invited him." Before Ethan could respond, the fire alarm screamed. Students jolted up, filing toward the exits, teachers barking orders. But Ethan froze, because above the alarm, he heard a whisper. "Say my name." The crowd pressed around him, shoving him toward the hallway. But the lights overhead flickered violently, strobing the corridor in dizzying flashes. And in one of those flickers, Ethan saw him at the far end of the hall. Tall, thin, the long arms dragging, the empty sockets glowing. "Charlie," the lights blinked. Again, and he was gone. The first attack that night. Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, headphones in, pretending to do homework. Every creak of the house made his chest tighten. At 2:13 a.m., his desk lamp flickered. Ethan froze. The bulb sputtered once, twice, and then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. He reached for his phone, fumbling for the flashlight app. The screen glowed, then suddenly died. Battery drained, though it had been at 80%. A cold draft brushed his neck. Ethan's breath came shallow. Slowly, he turned his head. There, in the corner of his room, something stood. A figure, its face hidden in shadow, but its arms stretched long, fingers scraping the floor. "Charlie," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. The figure's head snapped. Up. 2 red sockets blazed in the dark, and then it lunged. Ethan screamed as icy hands clamped around his throat, shoving him backward onto the bed. His vision blurred, black dots swimming. He clawed at the invisible grip, gasping for air. But just as suddenly as it began, the pressure vanished. Ethan shot upright, coughing, eyes streaming with tears. The room was empty. His lamp flickered. Back on, his phone screen glowing on the desk. But on the paper beside his homework, 4 words had been scratched in jagged letters. "Play again, or die." Ethan told no one about the attack. Not Melissa, not Tyler, not even Jake. Because how? Could he explain it? The icy hands that strangled him, the burning sockets in the dark, the words carved into his homework paper. If he said it out loud, it would become real. But it was real. Every time Ethan blinked, he still felt the phantom bruises around his neck. By Monday, Melissa cornered him in the hallway, clutching another stack of yellowed news clippings. "You saw him, didn't you?" she demanded. Ethan swallowed. "What are you talking about?" "You don't have to lie," she hissed. Her hands trembled. "I've been seeing him too." Before Ethan could reply, a commotion erupted near the stairwell. Students crowded, around phones raised, whispering. Ethan pushed through and froze. On the wall above the lockers, scrawled in jagged black letters, was a message. "Say my name." A reluctant gathering by nightfall. Melissa had gathered them all in her basement. The air smelled of old carpet and laundry detergent, but beneath it lingered something else, something sour. Metallic. Tyler paced nervously, muttering, "This is insane. We're feeding into it. Every time we play, it gets worse. Don't you see?" Melissa spread the notebook paper across the floor anyway. "He won't stop unless we do what he wants." Jake sat slumped on the couch, hood pulled low. His eyes were bloodshot, his skin gray. He hadn't spoken much since they arrived. Ethan sat opposite Melissa, heart hammering. "One game," he said finally. "Then we end it." Melissa nodded, though Ethan could see the doubt in her eyes. She drew the cross, wrote yes and no, balanced the pencils. The silence pressed in. Melissa whispered, "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" The answer, the pencil trembled, wobbled, then spun violently toward. "Yes." Tyler cursed under his breath. Melissa's voice shook. "What do you want from us?" The pencil jerked, spinning to no. Jake laughed bitterly. "That doesn't even make sense." The flashlight they'd set in the corner flickered, shadows stretching long across the walls. Ethan swallowed, his voice hoarse. "Charlie, Charlie, who do you want?" The pencil spun so fast it scraped across the paper and pointed directly at Jake. Jake froze. "What the hell?" The basement door slammed shut. The flashlight went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. The voice at first. Only their breathing filled the silence. Then a voice, low, raspy, crawling from the shadows. "Jayak." Jake stumbled back, hitting the couch. No, screw this, I'm done." He kicked the paper away, the pencils clattering into the dark. But the voice came again, closer. "This time, you mocked me." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You guys hear that?" he whispered. Melissa's hand clutched his arm. "It's real," she breathed. "It's real." Jake spun, desperate. "Shut up. You're not real. You're just some." A crash cut him off. One of the basement windows shattered inward, glass spraying across the floor. A freezing wind howled through the room, knocking books from the shelves. Jake screamed, clutching his arm. Fresh scratches carved themselves into his skin, long and jagged, letters forming before their eyes. "Mine." The shadow of the flashlight flickered back on for a split second and they all saw it. A tall figure standing in the corner, thin, twisted, head tilted unnaturally to the side. The red sockets burned. Jake's scream broke into sobs. "Please, please stop." The figure stretched one long arm forward, clawed fingers reaching. The flashlight died again, but the sound remained, the scrape of nails dragging across the floor, inching closer. Melissa's voice was barely audible. "What do we do, Ethan? What do we do?" Ethan's throat tightened. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. The whisper came again, directly in his ear this time. "Say my name." The basement was a tomb of shadows. The shattered window groaned in the wind, curtains whipping like torn shrouds. Glass crunched under Ethan's sneakers as he pressed himself against the wall. Heart hammering. Somewhere in the dark, Jake sobbed. No, get away, please." The sound of nails scraped closer, deliberate, dragging across the cement floor. Melissa fumbled with her flashlight, smacking the side of it until the beam sputtered back to life. For a heartbeat, the circle lit up. Jake was on his knees, his hoodie ripped, his arms bleeding with fresh, jagged scratches. The letters were clearer now, carved deep into his skin, mine. Behind him, the shadow loomed. Its neck was bent at an unnatural angle, arms long enough to drag across the floor, fingertips razor-sharp, the sockets blazed red. The flashlight flickered, died. Jake's scream cut through the dark. The attack something slammed into Ethan, throwing him sideways. He hit the wall, gasping for air. Tyler cursed somewhere in the dark, scrambling. Melissa shrieked, "Jake!" But Jake's screams changed. They weren't human anymore. They tore from his throat, deep and guttural, like something else was speaking through him. The flashlight burst back on, and what Ethan saw froze him to the marrow. Jake was standing now, but it wasn't Jake. His body trembled violently, his head lolling back, jaw stretched unnaturally wide. His eyes were no longer his own. The whites had vanished, replaced by swirling black, veins spidering outward across his skin. Blood dripped from the corners of his mouth. His voice was layered 2 tones at once. Jake's and something deeper, ancient, monstrous. "You called me." Melissa stumbled backward, her face ashen. Jake, please fight it." Jake's mouth twisted into a grin that wasn't his. His arms jerked at odd angles, bones cracking as his body contorted. He staggered forward, step by step. "He belongs to me." The possession deepens. Tyler grabbed a broom from the corner and swung wildly. The wooden handle smacked against Jake's side, but Jake didn't even flinch. Instead, his head snapped toward Tyler, eyes glowing. "Say my name." Tyler froze. His lips trembled. I won't." Jake's hand shot out, impossibly fast, clamping around Tyler's throat. Tyler gagged, his feet kicking off the ground as Jake lifted him with inhuman strength. "Stop," Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. He lunged forward, grabbing Jake's arm, trying to pry his fingers loose. The air grew freezing. Ethan's skin burned with cold where he touched Jake. His breath came out in clouds. The basement transformed into an icy tomb. Melissa dropped to her knees, grabbing the paper and pencils from the floor. Charlie, stop. We're listening, we're playing." Jake's head jerked toward her, his grip still crushing Tyler's neck. His voice was a guttural snarl. Too late. The breaking point. Ethan shoved against Jake with everything he had. For a moment, Jake's grip loosened, and Tyler collapsed to the ground. Coughing violently, Melissa screamed, "What do you want from us?" The pencil on the paper spun by itself, violently, carving jagged circles. Then it landed on one word. "Yes." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Yes, what?" The shadow behind Jake stretched taller, looming until it scraped the ceiling. Its voice hissed from the darkness, mingling with Jake's guttural groan. "Yes, to me. One of you." Jake's head snapped side to side, his bones cracking audibly. Blood dripped down his arm. Melissa's voice trembled. You mean one of us has to." The pencil spun again. "Yes." The cliffhanger. Jake's body convulsed. He dropped to his knees, clawing at his own throat, screaming in a chorus of voices. Melissa sobbed. Tyler wheezed on the floor, clutching his bruised neck. Ethan's fists shook as he stared at the paper, at the word carved into Jake's flesh, at the grinning shadow stretching taller and taller. Charlie wasn't asking anymore, he was demanding. One of them had to give in. The pencil began to spin on its own again, faster, harder, until it stopped pointing directly at Ethan. The basement was a wreck. Broken glass littered the floor. The pencils lay shattered near the paper. Jake collapsed in a heap, convulsing, muttering in a voice that wasn't entirely his own. Melissa grabbed Ethan's arm. He's not just possessed, he's part of it." Ethan swallowed, staring at the paper. The pencil had pointed at him. Me. The search for answers the next day. Ethan, Melissa, and Tyler barricaded themselves in Melissa's room. Jake had been taken home by his mother, too weak, too terrified, and too dangerous to stay. Melissa spread a pile of books across her bed, ancient rituals, ghost lore, town archives. The room smelled of dust and candle wax. We have to find out how to stop him, she said. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through a brittle journal. Tyler groaned. You mean it, that thing, Charlie? We're screwed. Nothing in these books is going to magically save us from a ghost who can bend people's bodies. Melissa ignored him. There's a pattern. Look. Every incident, Jake, Charles Mathers, others in Hollow Creek, they all invited him. Ethan rubbed his temples. So what? If he chooses me next, we just wait for him. No, Melissa snapped. We fight, or he'll take you too. Signs in the shadows that night. Ethan couldn't sleep. Every shadow seemed alive. Every creak of the house, every whisper of wind made him jump. His phone lit up with a notification, a message from an unknown number. Say my name, ORI. Take him. His stomach dropped. He bolted upright, flashlight trembling in his hands. Across the room, the shadows thickened. Shapes coalesced in the corners. Tall, thin eyes glowing red. A whisper crawled across the floorboards. Say my name. Ethan's voice caught. I don't know your name. The whisper grew louder, circling him. Objects began to move. Books, pencils, a chair sliding across the floor by itself. Melissa's voice called from the hallway. Ethan, don't panic. But it was too late. The shadows pressed in. The air grew icy. His breath came out in clouds, his heart pounding like a jackhammer. A terrifying vision. Ethan stumbled backward, tripping over a rug. His flashlight beam caught something on the wall. A message scratched, bleeding into the wallpaper. Choose or die, he screamed. His voice echoed in the empty house. Then the air shifted. The shadows pooled, forming a humanoid shape. Charlie and Tyler thinner. Longer arms. The head tilted unnaturally. Red sockets burning like coals. Ethan froze. Melissa appeared at the door, holding a candle. You have to say something. Anything. Ethan swallowed hard. Aye, Charlie. Please, leave us alone. The shadows wavered. A whisper hissed. Not enough. The candle flickered violently, and the temperature dropped until Ethan could see his breath in the air. The shadow lunged closer, the red sockets blazing. The group's plan. Melissa grabbed a notebook, scribbling frantically. We need a ritual, something to trap him. There's one here, an old method. You have to invite him, then bind him using a circle and certain symbols. Tyler groaned. We just survived a possession attempt, and now you want to invite him? Are you insane? Melissa shot him a glare. Do you want Ethan dead? Tyler froze. He didn't answer. Ethan's eyes were fixed on the corner, where Charlie's shadow began to stretch across the ceiling, moving like liquid smoke. You chose? The voice rasped, low and deadly. Ethan's chest tightened. I didn't choose. But deep down, he knew the pencil had already chosen. The cliffhanger. Charlie's shadow extended its long arm toward Ethan. The red sockets blazed, and the air vibrated with a low, guttural whisper. You are mine. Ethan stumbled backward, tripping over books. The shadows surged forward, walls closing in. The candle flickered out, leaving him in complete darkness. Melissa and Tyler screamed his name, but the sound was swallowed. Charlie was inches away, and then a loud crash upstairs. Something or someone was coming down the stairs. Melissa's basement smelled of smoke and old paper as she lit candles in a rough circle. Symbols were drawn on the floor in chalk, zigzags, triangles, and a crude star at the center. Tyler paced nervously. I still think this is insane. We're literally inviting a ghost to attack us so we can trap it. This can't end well. Melissa snapped. If we don't, Ethan's next. Look at him. Ethan was pale, his eyes wide as he stared at the corner of the basement. The shadows churned, creeping along the walls like dark water. Charlie was here. Invocation. Melissa took a deep breath. Ethan, you have to say his name. It's the only way to start the ritual. Ethan trembled. Charlie, I invite you. I invite you here. The air turned icy. Candles flickered violently. The pencils from the first game rolled across the floor, spinning on their own. A deep hiss echoed through the room. You dare summon me? The shadow extended its long arms toward Ethan. The red sockets blazed. Tyler swung the broom again, but it passed right through the figure. A whisper hissed, "Fools, all of you." Possession attempt. Charlie lunged. Ethan's chest tightened as invisible hands clawed at him. His vision blurred. Pain seared across his arms like icy knives. Melissa shouted the ritual instructions, waving her hands over the circle. Hold the candles. Focus on the symbols. You must trap him inside the circle. Ethan fell to his knees, clutching the floor, chalk dust scratching his palms. The shadow shrieked, a sound that rattled their bones. Jake's voice joined in, distorted and deep. You cannot hold me. Tyler screamed as a candle was knocked over. Flames leaping dangerously close to the papers on the floor. Binding the entity, Melissa traced the final symbol with chalk. Now Ethan, concentrate. Say the words. Ethan's voice shook. By this circle, by these words, I bind you. Charlie, you cannot leave until we release you. The shadow shrieked again, and the basement trembled. Books flew off shelves. The pencils spun in a perfect circle on the floor, almost as if drawn by invisible hands. Red light from the sockets reflected off the walls, bathing the basement in a blood-colored glow. Charlie let out a deafening roar and surged forward, but as his hand passed the circle, it hit an invisible barrier. The shadow recoiled. Partial success, Charlie screamed, twisting violently, pulling and stretching. But the chalk symbols held. Ethan collapsed to the floor, trembling and gasping. Tyler and Melissa backed away, watching in awe and terror. But then the shadow changed. Its head split into multiple forms, each a twisted mimic of Jake, Ethan, and even Melissa. The voices overlapped, screaming in unison. Charlie wasn't fully trapped. He was bound, but angry. A single whisper echoed across the room. This isn't over. Ethan looked down at his hands. Claw-like scratches had appeared across his palms, spelling next. Melissa swallowed hard. He's choosing someone else next. Tyler's face went pale. It's not done, not even close. The shadow shimmered and then dissipated into the corners, leaving the basement cold and silent. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time his eyes closed, he was pulled into a black void. The whispers followed him there, coiling around his mind. Say my name? The voice was low, cold, grating into his skull. It wasn't coming from anywhere yet. It was everywhere. Sleep paralysis at 2:47 a.m. Ethan woke or thought he did. He was lying in his bed, eyes wide open. His body felt like stone. He tried to move his arms, legs, but nothing responded. The room was dark, except for faint red glows pooling in the corners. Shadows crept along the walls like living ink. You cannot hide, whispered a voice from nowhere. Ethan's chest tightened. He tried to scream, but his mouth wouldn't open. A hand grazed his shoulder, cold, thin, sharp nails. He tried to jerk away, and finally managed to lift his eyes. Charlie was standing at the foot of his bed. Tall, twisted, limbs impossibly long, head tilted unnaturally, red sockets burning. Say my name. Hallucinations. Morning came more at least. The light tried to seep in. Ethan was drenched in sweat, body trembling. Melissa arrived quickly after. He called. Tyler was nowhere to be found. You're pale, she said, pulling him toward the couch. What happened? Ethan rubbed his face. He was there, last night, watching me. I couldn't move. It's like I was dead, but awake. Melissa's brow furrowed. Sleep paralysis. It's normal. Ethan shook his head. No, it wasn't normal. He's He's inside my head. I saw things, Melissa. Shadows moving in the hall, whispering my name, writing on the walls. I swear I did. By afternoon, Ethan began seeing fleeting glimpses, reflections in mirrors that weren't his own. The silhouette of Charlie standing behind people, watching, waiting at school. His pencil would roll on its own. Books would fly off his desk, whispers crawling through the hallways. Charlie was everywhere, manipulating reality one evening. Ethan returned home to find the basement door open. He never went in alone. Inside, the chalk circle from the last ritual had been disturbed. The symbols were smeared, as if something had clawed across the floor, and in the middle, a pencil, spinning slowly. Your turn. Ethan backed away bait. His bedroom light flickered. On the wall, words appeared, as if scratched by invisible fingernails. I see you. I watch you. Next. Melissa ran in behind him. What is it? What happened? Ethan's hand shook. It's him. He's marking me. He's coming for me next. The group struggles. Melissa and Tyler tried everything to keep him safe. Salt lines, candles, charms from old books. But Charlie didn't need the room. He existed in Ethan's perception, his mind, his very reality. At night, Ethan woke screaming. Doors slammed on their own. Shadows formed faces of past victims, whispering his name in chorus. His reflection in the mirror grinned at him, not his own grin, but Charlie's. Tyler slammed his hands against the wall. We have to figure out a stronger ritual. He's too powerful. He's not just a ghost anymore. Melissa nodded, pale and shaking. We have to finish what we started, or he takes Ethan completely. Cliffhanger. Late that night, Ethan sat alone in his room, notebook and pencils on the floor. He tried to draw the circle himself, chanting the words Melissa had taught him. The shadows swirled faster, the temperature dropping. A whisper crawled along his spine. I'm inside you, and soon I'll be out. The pencils lifted into the air, spinning violently, carving a jagged path through the floorboards. Ethan's eyes widened in terror as the last whisper slithered through the room. One night left. Melissa, Tyler, and Ethan gathered in the basement once again. Candles burned along the chalked circle, symbols drawn carefully after frantic revisions. The air was thick with cold. Every breath hung like fog. The pencils from before hovered at the center, spinning in a perfect circle. Tyler swallowed. This is it, right? We either trap him or die trying. Melissa nodded. Her hands shook, but her voice was firm. We finish this. We end it tonight. No mistakes. Ethan felt the chill crawl over him. His palms itched, claw-like marks. From Charlie's influence, still fresh. He was ready, or as ready as anyone could be. Invocation of Charlie. Melissa lit the central candle and began chanting. Tyler and Ethan followed, their voices quivering but synchronized. By this circle, by these words, we bind you. Charlie, Charlie, you belong here until released by no mortal hand. The basement went cold. The shadows twisted violently, forming multiple humanoid shapes with red sockets blazing. The pencils flew into the air, spinning faster, cutting arcs through the candlelight. A voice, guttural and layered, hissed, "You dare summon me again? I am not contained." The figure lunged. Charlie's shadow erupted across the basement like black fire. Ethan felt invisible hands clawing at his chest, pulling him toward the center. Tyler swung a chair. Melissa slammed her palms onto the symbols. Battle of the ritual. Charlie's form grew monstrous. Limbs stretched unnaturally. His mouth opened, impossibly wide, multiple voices screaming at once. Say my name, claim me, or be mine. Ethan gritted his teeth, chanting louder, forcing the circle to hold. The pencils spun faster, a vortex of motion, sparks of red light bursting from them. Jake appeared suddenly, his own body partially recovered, but still pale and trembling. Melissa had insisted he stay hidden for safety, but he had snuck in to help. Charlie's shadow twisted toward Jake, growling. Jake froze, then screamed a single name, Charlie. The circle pulsed. The shadows shrieked, clawing at the edges, but could not pass the chalk. The climax, Charlie's form became unstable. The red sockets flared violently, smoke and shadow whipping around the basement. His voice thundered. "You think you can contain me? I am endless." Melissa chanted faster, her hands shaking. Tyler added his voice. Then Ethan. The pencils spiraled, faster and faster, creating a vortex of energy inside the circle. The walls groaned. The candles flickered dangerously. Charlie let out a scream unlike any human sound. He surged forward, one last time, and then the vortex exploded, a blinding flash of light consuming the basement. When the light faded, Charlie was gone. The pencils clattered to the floor, lifeless. The chalk circle was cracked, but intact. Aftermath. Ethan collapsed, gasping for air. Melissa fell beside him, shaking. Tyler leaned against the wall, pale and trembling. Jake sat nearby, his face drained, staring at his hands. "Is it over?" Melissa nodded slowly, though her eyes remained wary. "For now, he's trapped. But the ritual isn't perfect. We've only delayed him." Ethan touched his palm scratches. From Charlie's influence had faded, but he could still feel the residual chill. A whisper echoed, faint but unmistakable, in the far corner of the basement. "I am always here." The basement was quiet, almost too quiet. The chalk circle had been disturbed, cracked from the struggle, but Charlie had vanished. The pencils lay scattered across the floor, motionless. Melissa, Tyler, Ethan, and Jake were all exhausted, trembling, but alive. Ethan rubbed his eyes, feeling every scar, every mark of Charlie's touch still burning faintly on his skin. "Is it really over?" Melissa shook her head slowly. "Not really. He's bound for now. The ritual, it worked, but it's not permanent. He can't escape the circle, but he can linger, in shadows, in whispers." Jake, pale and shaking, whispered, "I can still feel him, in my head sometimes, returning to normal." The following days were unnerving. Shadows seemed longer, corners darker. Hallways echoed with faint whispers at night. Tyler tried to joke about it. "Well, at least he's stuck in that basement, right?" But Ethan knew better. He woke in the middle of the night to faint red dots glimmering in the corners of his room. He blinked on, they were gone. Melissa drew protective symbols around her windows, doors, even her bed. "It's like living with a ghost," she said softly. The four of them never played another game. Not pencils, not chalk, not whispers. They didn't even speak the name aloud. The subtle haunting weeks passed, but subtle signs continued. A pencil rolling across a table by itself, a mirror fogging up with words that disappeared before they could read them. Jake shivered as he walked past a doorway and felt a cold hand brush his shoulder. No one was there. Ethan had nightmares almost every night. Charlie's red sockets staring through the dark, whispering his name, laughing in a way that chilled his soul. Tyler started noticing shadowy figures in his peripheral vision at school. Melissa's candles would flicker violently when she was alone. They were free, but not free. The last whisper. One evening, Ethan sat at his desk, flipping through a notebook filled with ritual notes and sketches. His room was quiet. Then, in the stillness, he heard it. A whisper, so soft it was almost a breath. Soon, Ethan froze. His pencil rolled slightly, spinning in a perfect circle, untouched by his hand. He didn't speak. He didn't move. From the corner of the room, a faint red glow shimmered briefly and then vanished. Charlie had not left. He had only retreated. Waiting. End of series. The four survivors learned a bitter truth. Some games are never truly over. Some whispers never stop. Some shadows always remain. And somewhere, in the dark corners of Hollow Creek, Charlie waits patiently for the next hand to play.